So today we have been joined by Mr. Tom Wilkinson, and he is a teacher at the London School of Economics. And in the next half an hour, we're going to know more about him and his career and what and just know more about him. So should we start with the questions?
Yeah, let's begin.
Yeah. So how did you you're doing your doctoral research right now, and it's a very interesting topic. So how could you tell us what the topic is and how did you come to select it?
Yeah, so my PhD research is about the history of youth and young people in India during the colonial period and also during the post-colonial period. So between roughly the 1930s and the 1960s. And I look at a variety of different youth movements and youth mobilizations in colonial and early post-colonial India. And to be slightly more specific with you, Angela, I look at some youth movements that were organised by the state, by the government, and also some youth movements that were organised by non-state actors, by volunteer movements, and also at the crisscross between the state and the non-state actors.
Mm-hmm.
And basically I look at the relationship between Indian youth and the defence of India in the colonial and post-colonial period between 1930s and the 1960s, the relationship between Indian youth and the national development of India during the same period from the 1930s to the 1960s, Indian youth and the history of their leisure, and also student politics, specifically through the lens of the All Indian Student Federation, the AISF, the Communist Party of India student movement. So in a nutshell, basically, I'm writing the history of Indian youth and young people during the colonial and post-colonial period.
Right. So it's a very interesting topic to us because even though we've been studying our history throughout school, this is something that we have never come across specifically. So could you share with us your findings, like anything that you've come across?
Yeah, that's a good question, Angela. And I'd say, for me, as a historian of India and as a historian of youth, I would argue that the history of young people is absolutely essential and integral to the history of India. And
Right.
young people have been at the very forefront of the freedom struggle against the British, against those bastards British, and of which I'm one. And also, young people have been at central to the national development of India, the national defence of India, and also the national politics of India. And to take each one of those very briefly in turn, in terms of the young people have been central to the defence of India, and whenever India has engaged in a conflict with another country, especially Pakistan or China, young people have been mobilised in huge numbers to defend India. Secondly, in terms of the relationship between young people and the national development of India, from 1947 onwards, young people, or rather mobilisations of young people, were incorporated into the 5-year plans and the development programmes associated with Jawaharlal Nehru, Nehruvian development. Young people were central to that. So young people have been at the very forefront of efforts to develop India into a so-called modern country. Thirdly, in terms of the relationship between young people and leisure, if we look at the consumption patterns of young people, if we look at the young people as consumers, if we look at young people and the films they watched, the music they watched, the kind of trends that they were a part of, then that tells us an awful lot about the wider trends of Indian society. And fourthly, student politics. In India, student politics at the campus level is so vibrant, historically speaking, that it gives many insights into the very nature of Indian politics. And that was my experience when I was a research scholar at Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi last year. And that was definitely, and seeing just how political Indian politics is very interesting.
Right. So, how far are you into your research now?
So I am in the third year of my PhD, and I've got 4 years of funding. So last year I studied at JNU, and also I did my archival research in New Delhi, where I studied all these various youth movements and youth mobilizations in the historical documents at the National Archives of India in New Delhi, and at Teen Murti Bhavan, which was formerly the House of Nehru, and various other archives ranging from the Communist Party of India headquarters to the headquarters of the Youth Hostel of India Association.
Yeah. So now that you've spoken about your trip to India last year, so please share with us your experiences. You also said you've learned some Hindi. So please show off.
So yeah, I've lived in India for about 18 months in total over the last 3 years. And it started off when I worked as a teaching assistant for the British Library, for the British Council. And then after that, I came back to India to learn Hindi. मैं हिंदी बोल सकता हूँ, मैं मसूरी रहकर हिंदी सीखा था, और after that, after learning Hindi in Missouri, I then came back to study at JNU and do my archival research. So yeah, I've lived in India for 18 months. In some ways, Delhi's like my home away from home, and yeah. So yeah, India, India in some ways does feel like a home away from home, and hopefully when lockdowns finish, I'll come back. What was your question again, Angela? I feel like I've just waffled on a little bit then.
No, it was what were your experiences in India?
Yeah, it's funny actually. Like, I think my best experiences of India have probably been traveling around, and I've traveled around India quite extensively. I've traveled around Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Kerala, Goa. But I think the best experience I've ever had in India is probably traveling to Ladakh and probably going to Kashmir. And it was myself and two friends of mine who were also working for the British Council. We'd never left New Delhi, and we set off on a road trip to go to Leh in Ladakh, and it was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that's one of the more famous and scenic routes of India. So we have a question from a viewer. So he asks, what age groups do you bracket as young people in your research, and how did you arrive at this classification?
That's a really interesting question. Who asked that question?
Roha Patanka. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Acha. So, central to any research project is, of course, defining the key concepts. And the key concept for me, studying the history of Indian youth, is youth. And therefore, what is youth is a very important question. And there's a number of different ways in which I could define this concept.
Mm-hmm.
And the first is this. So first, youth is a post-childhood passage to adulthood. So therefore, it's a life stage after childhood, but before adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
And we can roughly define it. It also roughly interacts with concepts of adolescence and puberty and the kind of biological change that young people go through when on that passage to adulthood. So it's related to biological change. It's a stage of life that's both after childhood but before adulthood, and also it is often related to age. So, but I'd be careful about giving an exact definition of according to age, because this category is also distinguished by fluidity, and therefore the boundaries of youthhood as a life stage are also somewhat porous and malleable. But nevertheless, I'd say that between the ages of, say, anywhere between 12 and 25 could be considered as youth, but it changes across different places, and it changes across time, and it's related to different rites of passages and different cultural traditions, whether that be, say, in India, in the Indian context, for example, the historical traditions of child marriage. And there's, of course, an innumerable types of rites of passages which define and distinguish particular cultural conceptions of youth. So there you go. There's an extraordinarily long-winded answer to a very simple question.
So my next question to you is, were you always fascinated with India that you ended up choosing this topic?
It was actually quite random how I ended up specialising in the history of India. I'd never been to India before. My family, believe it or not, isn't Indian. This is my sister here. Where is she? Can you see her? There's my sister. Believe it or not, she's not Indian. Although we do go very brown in the sun, but yes, cultural links to India really. But when I was finishing my masters at LSE, I was doing my masters in empires, colonialism, and globalization. That's what I was specialising in for my masters. So therefore, I was kind of quite familiar with concepts of colonialism, imperialism, and so forth. But I'd never studied in. And then I literally did a one application wonder and applied for a job with the British Council. Got a job with the British Council, and they said in 3 months' time, can you move to New Delhi? And I said, yeah, all right, I'll move to New Delhi. So I got this job in New Delhi, really quickly changed the focus of my master's research onto British imperialism in India, and the rest is history. And I moved to New Delhi, began looking at the history of India, and that was my master's topic. I did well in my master's and got a first-class degree, so I had the grades to go on to do a PhD, and then decided to run with the history of India. And it's also been a pretty life-changing experience for me, because 4 years ago I'd never been to India, and now I'm doing a PhD in the history of India. I speak Hindi. I've lived in India for 18 months. My most previous lover / long-term partner was Indian. So it's actually been quite a life-changing experience for me to spend all this time in India, become familiar with Indian history. And So yeah, but it came about quite arbitrarily.
Right. So um, when you
Shit. Hello, Angela. Sorry, just went a little bit. You just went off for a moment then.
yeah, sorry about that. So
No problem.
moving on to your experiences in India, you are a trustee with an organization called Paperboard. So what is Paperboard and how did you get associated with it?
Yes, so Paperboat is a charity that essentially tries to promote opportunities for children and young people in India, specifically in Tamil Nadu. And this is a charity that has just emerged in 2019, but it's actually got 50 years of experience. And that's because it used to be called the Joe Horman Charity. And it took its name from a man called, unsurprisingly, Joe Horman, who was a Catholic priest who was kind of doing the thing that those missionaries did, which was going over to India, seeing lots of poverty and thinking that it's incumbent upon them to fix it. And so he was one of those he was an Irish priest who witnessed the poverty of Madurai in Tamil Nadu and then essentially established boys' towns, which was essentially small villages for young boys from socially marginalized backgrounds, from very poor families that didn't have many opportunities. And he set about equipping them with agricultural skills in order to financially support their families, their poor families in the south of India, in Tamil Nadu. Now that was 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now, in the last 50 years, India has changed fundamentally and its economy is not what it once was. So whereas the Joe Horman charity of 50 years ago used to give children and young adults the skills in order to help their family in the agricultural setting. Well, now as India's economy has transformed profoundly in the last 50 years, now what Paperboat does is give young people, trains young people in a different set of skills. It teaches young people how to deal with data, how to build websites, how to create videos, and how to be, and gives young people with the entrepreneurial skills they need to navigate the economic landscape of modern India, the India of the 21st century, of coffee day and Ubers, not the India of, not early post-colonial India, of essentially it's a very different country.
Right, right. So you had also told us about this initiative that Paperboard has called Children's Hubs. So is there anything that you can add to that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, in January just gone, I was in Tamil Nadu and I was visiting these children's hubs, and it was really quite amazing the work that the Paperboat charity does there. And in slums and in other socially disadvantaged areas, Paperboat is setting up small hubs which seek to harness the creative capacity of children and young adults from socially marginalised backgrounds. And the idea is that children, young people go to these hubs, and it's a way in which the infinite potential can be harnessed. And it's in these hubs that the Paperboat promotes a number of different skills, including the design of websites, how to handle data, how to create videos. So central to these children's hubs is creativity. Central to it is the idea that every single child has an infinite potential, and that creativity is a really unique way to harness that potential. And these creative hubs are, by the way, they're a model designed by MIT, by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and they're essentially one way to kind of broaden young people's horizons. One thing that's worth adding, Angela, is the name Paperboat. We called it that because it's a particular concept. First of all, there's a poem by Rabindranath Tagore called Paperboat. Are you familiar with the poem, Angela?
Not really.
Well, I can't remember it off the top of my head, so I won't try. But there's a poem by Rabindranath Tagore who when he was writing in Bengal, in Shantiniketan, he wrote this poem about young people from socially marginalized backgrounds from the village who would go to the local river, and they would create from a piece of paper a paper boat, and they would then put that paper boat on the river, and the paper boat would sail down the river. And the idea is that from something as simple as a piece of paper, you can create a boat, and that boat can carry so much, can carry the dreams or the wishes or the ambitions of so many young people. So that's where we got the inspiration from to rename the charity as Paperboat. What time is it?
Right. Is it getting late?
No, that's absolutely fine. I was just asking my sister what time it was. Not that I'm in any rush. You know, the sky. I'm pretty chilled out. It's blue skies. I'm an open book.
Yeah, it's beautiful outside. On the other hand, it's raining here.
Is it? Oh yeah, these are the beautiful blue skies of northwest England, Lancashire.
So you've told us so much about your work and where you're volunteering, and if you could tell us the one such moment that really molded you into the person you are, that took you down this path and really affirmed it for you that affirmed it for you that you are on the right path, something like that.
Well, that's a tricky question, Angela, because I'm not sure I'm on the right path. But it is a difficult question because there's been so many people that I've met along the path who have become really good friends, and also so many experiences. So it's difficult to choose one. And also, I'd say, because I'm not really necessarily sure I am on the right path most of the time. But I'd say there's a few. And the first one is, I'd say, like, and it's a bit cringy and a bit cliche, but I think growing up, you know, coming from Lancashire, northwest England, from my hometown, having a very supportive family and going to a really good sixth form, that was definitely helpful. And then I think just after, when I was in university, I got a series of lucky breaks, which kind of, like, I got this internship on Wall Street, I got a job in Parliament, I got this big scholarship to go and study at LSE, which meant I could do a PhD. So I think I had a few lucky breaks along the way. And I think that's meant that I could go on to do a PhD, basically. The fact that I got these good internships and then I got that big scholarship to study at LSE.
Right. So that's just, you've taken it as you go. You've gone with the flow.
Absolutely, like a twig on the shoulders of a mighty river, going with the flow.
Right. So I have a few questions, just the last couple of questions from my side. If there are any viewers who would like to ask any questions to Tom, please comment it and we'll get to them. So Tom, what is next for you? What visions or aspirations do you have for yourself?
Good question. I think, well, in the short term, I need to finish my PhD.
Right.
And I've got about 1 year left of that, so I'm going to get my doctorate, and then I think I'd like to turn this history of youth that I'm writing, I'll publish that as a book, and then I'll publish a couple of articles, academic articles, and then I'm not sure whether I'll stay in the university, whether I'll stay in academia, or I'll go into a different profession. But I'd like to continue working with Paperboat, and they're a really exciting. The Paperboat as an NGO is at a really exciting period, and is at a transition point where there's all this really exciting work going on that seeks to harness the potential of young people and children, and that's really exciting for that. So I think that once I've got my doctorate next year, there's a few different channels that I'll potentially go down. One is I'll potentially stay in academia and pursue that path and try and become a professor at a university. Alternatively, I might try my hand in policy or politics. Or thirdly, maybe I might even apply to become a diplomat for the British Foreign Office. So I mean, I'm only 26, so I don't really know exactly what I'm doing, or like what exactly the kind of future holds. But I'm pretty chilled out on that front in terms of I'm kind of taking things as it comes, and also, especially with COVID-19 and coronavirus, there is so much uncertainty now of what the economy is going to look like in 1 year's time. In the UK, the universities are having the funding are going to face serious funding cuts, which is means there's not going to be many jobs around. And I think there is life, once this vaccine has been developed, life's never going to be the same in any way. The way that we conduct our economy, the way that we conduct politics is going to be fundamentally transformed. And hopefully, and yeah, I think that the distinguishing characteristic of this current moment in our lives in the next year or two is distinguished by uncertainty.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty uncertain for everyone, and no one really knows what to do next, whether it's related to their career or their education. So, my last question for you today is not last, second last, uh, is as you say, you've had a lot of lucky breaks, but they've been lucky breaks in the probably the best institutions in the world. And are there any lessons that you have learned that you would like to share with our viewers today?
God, Angela, you're making me blush. But you know what? In some way, I feel hugely underqualified to be giving anybody lessons, to be honest. Only insofar as, because I'm still so young and I've not got my PhD yet, I'm still working towards it. I'm not really sure if I'm kind of best equipped to be giving out advice. But nevertheless, that said, I'd say I was quite lucky to develop a few interests quite early on. Like I became a bit of a weirdo, and I was interested in politics and history. My mum was quite interested in history as well, and I became interested in politics as well. So I was quite lucky to develop these interests, and therefore I've gone on to kind of like continue studying them and stuff like that. So maybe that could be a good one, do what you enjoy doing, really, yeah. Do what you enjoy, and also I'd say be ambitious as well. And I get a Paperboat, the charity I'm involved with, they do tell people the first line of the mission statement is that every single person has an almost infinite potential. So I think that's probably a good starting point.
Yes. Thank you for your lovely words. And we'll just, since we have no questions from the viewers, we'll end with this. So please share with us your social media handles, the websites where people can get connected to you, know more about you and your work, can get connected to Paperboat and know more about them. So if you could share all of that right now, please.
Yeah, I will do. How do I share that? Do I just put it in the comment box?
Um, you can just say it out right now, and later, if you want, you can share it with us on WhatsApp, and we will make another post about it.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah. So my social media, my Twitter, Instagram, all just Tom Wilk 0, TOMWILK 0, and if you just type in Paperboat Charity into Facebook, then it comes up as the first one. Our website's currently been we're having a new website designed, but yeah, do go onto Facebook and like Paperboat.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tom. It's been a pleasure talking to you and knowing about your work and your research. It's so interesting to know about things that we as Indians wouldn't know. So thank you so much for doing what you do and joining us today.
Thank you very much, Angela. I've really enjoyed it, and also my sister's been here as well. My sister's just having a pie. You see, we're like proper Northerners, Angela. We're from Lancashire. This is what we do in the northwest of England. We sit around while it's beautiful outside, and we eat pies. This is my sausage roll with my name on it afterwards. So that's my big sister. Just thought I'd introduce her to all.
Hello,
The
nice to meet
followers
you.
out there. But yeah, Angela, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much. And yeah, I was really pleased to be invited to speak at this series. So yeah, thanks very much for inviting me to kind of get involved.
Thank you, thank you. And with this, we end our session for today, and we will see all our viewers again tomorrow at 7:30 to have another interview with another interesting person. So thank you, Tom, and we'll see you again
No,
sometime.
thank you, Angela.
Stay safe. Bye bye.
Stay safe. Bye bye. Thank you very much, Angela. Bye bye.
Bye bye.